Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 126.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Hello, this is Keith Parsons with Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, and with me today, I have David Wilson. David, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Keith. How are you?
Very good. Home for a while, and it's kind of nice to sleep in your own bed and working with your old gear. So I have a chance here to catch up on some podcasts. So I thought this is really me catching up, feeling guilty for not doing a blog right after MFD2. So yeah, I have a really slow burn on the guilt feeling. So we are catching up.
Great to be here.
I mean, it was only a couple months ago, really.
Yes. Well, there's a lot that's happened in the last couple of months.
And so this is a good thing. Then you get to tell us all the new things that have happened since Mobility Field Day.
Great.
Well, most people in the wireless industry, at least those who've read my blog or listen to the podcast or go to Mobility Field Day and listen on those, have heard of Cape Networks. I wrote a blog about how it's how I use it to double check and be that third eye looking at my Wi-Fi systems. So the most important Wi-Fi that I have to support, the one that keeps my wife and family happy, it's babysitting it quite nicely. So
great.
Thank you for that. And for those who haven't, watched MFD and saw your stories, or they weren't at WLPC and heard you present there, can you just give us a quick recap of how you started Cape and what you think it's, where is it going in the next little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we started Cape to really help IT and network operations teams measure their Wi-Fi quality in an objective way, and to be able to ensure that it's always great for the most important people on the network, the users. So what it does is it tests Wi-Fi from the user's perspective, and it is constantly doing that 24/7. We started Cape a couple of years ago now. Our background was in the carrier space, and we just saw that all the difficulties that even wireless carriers, you think about all the tools and resources at their disposal, and yet they still had a lot of challenges understanding their network performance from the user's perspective. And that was part of the shift that we saw from the kind of voice-centric world to an application-centric one, where the quality of your YouTube streaming and Skype calls, for example, are more important than whether your regular calls drop or hold. So we developed Cape to help anyone managing a wireless network really make their lives easier.
Well, of course, we like making everyone's life easier. And so you started out with kind of a homebrew little box in a little Tupperware container. By the way, that set of slides and the little video you showed at MFD2 was probably one of the best things I enjoyed from that whole week. Seeing the process of how you built those. So if anyone's not seen it, go to Mobility Field Day and Cape Networks presentation, and there's a little presentation of how they made the first little boxes. But you don't have those little boxes anymore. You have new ones. Tell us about your new boxes.
Yeah, that was a...
What do they look? This is a podcast, so we don't have any pictures. You're gonna have to do it. Put a picture with your words.
Yes, you just have to imagine, the old devices. We used Raspberry Pis and Odroids and a bunch of other electronics that we created ourselves. That was part of the prototyping process to figure out what is the real ideal sensor, the ideal device for network ops teams to install, not just from a functionality perspective, but also from a form factor perspective. And so what that's evolved into, what our sensor looks like today, is it looks like a really small access point. It's about 6 by 6 inches, and you can power it either via PoE or just DC power. It's got an adhesive backing plate, so you can stick it onto a wall or on a desk in just a few seconds without any tools. And we've got a couple of really interesting things inside there. So it runs a full Linux computer with multiple network interfaces, and one of those interfaces is a cellular modem. And we provide a kind of managed cellular option on the sensors, which means that you can just get those sensors up and running in just a couple minutes without any connectivity present apart from cellular. So we've had, and I think I gave the example at MSD2, we've had customers who just mailed the sensors out to remote branches, and non-technical colleagues have just put the sensor up and running in a couple of short minutes by just connecting it to power.
Well, and you did mention it has adhesive, so you can mount it that way. But I also have to mention, your kit comes with so many ways to mount it. There's a whole kit of little tools and pieces, and I was very impressed. You kind of went overboard on that, and no complaints from here. I think the mounting options give you lots and lots of choices, from quick mounting, secure mounting, fixed mounting, however you want to put it. All you need is little drill, and you're off and running. So thank you for including all those parts. I mean, including the wall fasteners itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're going to mount something and you're missing, the molly bolt or the anchor for drywall, you got to go find some. But you included them all, so thank you. That was kind of a professional thing to do.
Yeah, you're welcome. We really, one of the things that continues to drive us is the fact that Wi-Fi is so important and business critical in so many different kinds of environments, and we wanted to make sure that it was just as easy as possible to set up in no matter what kind of environment people have.
Yeah, so well done on that part. And it was simple. You're right. You take one, you plug it in, log into your account, bring it up, and if you don't do anything, it's just up and running in mere minutes. So I can see how you could ship one of these out and have it up online and working. So just from my experience, I've got mine up on board right now. It does Wi-Fi, which is great. It does your network, wired DHCP and DNS, and you can also set it up to do some external, making sure Google's up or Microsoft Online or etc. I found over the last 6-8 months, most of my errors are DHCP and DNS. Have you found that with, you've got obviously thousands and thousands of these out there?
Yeah, it varies network to network, but it's a pretty high proportion that's DNS and DHCP, just over 10%. So it's about 12% between the two of those.
Oh, I'm actually surprised. You're saying it's 90% RF.
Well, no. So you see errors from all kinds of places, and that's one of the advantages testing in the way that we do by testing actual applications. About a third of the errors are RF related that we see. There's about 40% are actually related to the carrier or the peering networks or the applications themselves, something outside of just the pure RF.
Oh, okay. I mean, one of the things I like looking at, you have a little history, so you can go back and when my wife calls and says, the network is slow, she always blames the Wi-Fi. And I can come in and say, you're...
Everyone always blames the Wi-Fi. Everyone always blames.
But this is the whole value of having a CAPE sensor. You can come back and look and say, well, the retry rate was, and give an actual number. The channel utilization was or is, and I can't get on. Well, my association time, by the way, is like 0.04 seconds. So I'm like, yes, that part's working. But I'm running 13, 14% retry rates, which means I probably should do something about that. But that's the 2.4 side, and it's kind of ugly. But knowing that, it's right here in your face, and it's not. I don't have to whip out any other tools. I don't need to get a packet capture around. Just the sensors reporting this all the time, and I can be anywhere in the world and just log in and see how it's going.
Yeah, that's. I mean, one of the things that we debuted or introduced at MFD2 was our packet capture functionality. So the sensor's constantly running a packet capture in the background. And we strip out data directly from that to calculate retry rate. We also take, for example, RSSI values from the radio tap headers of the data packets. And we use that packet capture. We're building more functionality to kind of automatically analyze those packet captures, so that saves you some time and effort.
Not to mention, if you do need to, you can just go click and say, give me the real packet capture. Though I found in most of the time, I don't need the packet capture if I can get the statistics. What was the average data rate? What's the signal strength? What's the packet retry rate? That's the utilization on the channel. Those things alone help me do a lot of troubleshooting. If I can't figure it out from there, well, then I have to get the packets and do a little more point-to-point work. But it does solve the problem for most situations. You can get the answer just from these simple screens.
Yeah.
So you haven't tried it? Yeah, go try it. So what's next for? I mean, you've obviously improved the product without touching anyone's hardware. You've added more functionality, and kudos to your team for pulling that off. That's not always an easy thing to do while you have installed base and actually make new features, roll them out, and still have it work. So well done. So let's keep doing, next month, next 6 months. Well, at least the things you can share.
Sure. Well, let me maybe catch you up first on some of the things we've done since MFD2. The last couple of months, I was actually just looking at the stats before this call. We've made an average of 5.4 updates per week since then. Most of those are to the dashboard itself, so 46 updates to the dashboard, 19 major firmware releases and upgrades. And the main focus, we're kind of constantly improving little things, but we've added a few significant pieces of functionality as well. So first is we've improved the way that we test Wi-Fi. So added more options. For example, you can now lock a sensor to a specific band, either 2.45, and only test that specific band and the channels in that band. You can add an alias for SSIDs. So if you've got different SSIDs or SSIDs in multiple locations with different passwords, for example, it's a way of testing those. And as I mentioned, we're now using the radio tap headers to help calculate RSSI. So those are some of the things we've done to improve the way that we enable Wi-Fi testing specifically. And then we've added more functionality around the network testing. So one thing is adding the DORA timing for DHCP. As you say, DHCP is a source of a lot of frustration, while for us it's roughly 10% of the issues that we see, it is unlike certain RF issues, DHCP is problems are relatively pervasive across most of our customers, most of our customer environments. So whenever we encounter a DHCP error, we now save the DORA timings as part of our auto analysis. We've also added authentication timing to allow you to look at potential authentication issues, and there's a few other little tweaks like some Wi-Fi networks don't have any external testing. No external connectivity at least. So, we've enabled people to disable external tests on certain networks. And the last kind of major area is the user experience and the interface. So something that I can't stop using that we've recently implemented is just a dragging on a chart to zoom in. And once you start using that to kind of zoom in on a specific time where you think you had an issue, or to kind of explore data more closely, it's really convenient. And we've made some updates to our the way that we show our map view, and we've really overhauled how we onboard new users and devices. So it was something that we were really proud of before, how easy and fast it is to set up a new device. And we just wanted to make it that much faster. So we brought it down from 5 to 10 minutes to 2 to 3 minutes on average.
Well, how come you didn't tell the world about this zoom in thing? That is phenomenal. It's just so intuitive.
It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. I mean, sorry, I shouldn't gush over that, but you're right. I can see how you just go, yeah, what happened in this hour?
It's pretty cool,
Yeah,
right?
you just zoom in and there you go.
Yeah.
And it's just intuitive. You just do it and it shows up right where you want. You want to go back, hit the 24-hour button, and it just scrolls back. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, you got me excited again. It's just little things like that get going.
Yeah, it's really fun. These little tweaks. That's one of the hard things about this job, and just building a product like this, is that it's so tempting to focus only on new features, like headline type features. But it's really great to be able to go back and make little tweaks to the interface and to the way that we do things that just make it so much easier to use.
Well, you already should win awards on your interface. It's simple, clean, easy, intuitive. Obviously, I don't know who's doing your UI work, but kudos to them.
Thanks, thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, we pay a lot of attention to it.
Is that you?
Yeah, I'm heavily involved, and we have a team in South Africa. Our engineering team is based out there, and we have a couple of really great UI developers and designers.
Well, they've done a bang up job of making it simple and easy to do. I do have a blog post on how this is run and what the interface looks like. If you're interested, it's on WLAN Pro's website, and just search for CAPE, and there's I think it's monitoring Wi-Fi CAPE networks is the actual URL, but you don't just search the networks. Quite easy. So those of you who want to take a look and see how it goes. The website itself for CAPE is also fairly easy. You have guides easy to work through and step through. It's like you've designed it for people who don't know what they're doing. I like that.
Thank you.
Was that like your purpose was like, these people don't know what they're doing, so let's make it simple?
No, I mean, no, definitely not. But we did. One of the things that we reacted to, that we saw out in the market, and that we just did not want to fall into the trap of, is that we saw a lot of products and websites and just in general communication was really geared between like network experts and for kind of only network experts, if you know what I mean. And we just think that when we look at all the Wi-Fi networks that we use, that we rely on every day, a lot of those are not run by the kind of top certified experts, and we just did not want to exclude those people from using our tools. And a lot of the design decisions that we made, we specifically kept in mind people that don't necessarily live and breathe wireless or networking all day long, and that was important to us.
Probably a really wise decision, because it's a much bigger market. I mean, from a VC standpoint, go after the big market, not the small guys. We love it, and we have we like it because it makes our life and job easier. But we're not your target market anyway. Well, I mean, obviously we like using it, but much bigger group of people out there who need this because they don't have anyone internal to help them.
Right, but just beyond that, though, Keith, I think that it's important to realize, like, and we see this with our own customers, where there's maybe a Wi-Fi expert or a couple Wi-Fi experts in the company, but there's more people who want to understand how Wi-Fi is performing and are on call to help support the network. So in a lot of our installations, it's support people and first line support all the way up to CTOs, CEOs, and even board members sometimes. With with one of our customers at least, have access to the product and are able to use the product. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's not just about going for kind of companies or environments where there is no expert. It's also just making the data accessible and to people beyond the expert in the company too.
Well, and I like that a lot. Big smiley green faces, everything's happy. Something I have noticed though, and maybe you can explain this. I understand the logic, but I added a website that we used to support, and it obviously had some issues. It was a redirect, and the redirect failed. So SSL was the error that happened. So when I added it to my external tests, my green smiley face turned sad and red. But it was only one of all the tests that looked that way. If this was a CEO or someone else looking at it, their first assumption would be red, frowny face, the network's sick. But then when you drill down to it, it's just one feature, just SSL alone, on one of 10 different external tests we have it running. Is there some way to make it not look so sad when it's just a little teeny thing?
Yeah, actually, so there's a couple things that you can do. So one is if you hover over the application name that you're testing, a little bell icon appears on the right-hand side. And if you click on that bell, it just mutes that issue. It suppresses that issue and it returns the dashboard to being totally green. And so that's a way of, anytime you get an error.
That's making it go away, but it didn't actually. I mean, someone's going to call with a red face, and I could make it go away by just, I could also make it go away by turning off the external test.
Yeah.
I just wonder if there's a threshold of how many errors happen before the green face goes away.
There isn't yet. It's something that we have talked about and thought about internally. But we haven't implemented that yet. Maybe that should be on our roadmap.
It's just one of those ones, as soon as you see red face, all of a sudden you go trying to fix it, and it was really a very small thing that caused it. Now, next question I have is a little broader based on the industry of doing this. I mean, you're part of an entire group of people who look at Wi-Fi from the diagnostic standpoint. Is it the Wi-Fi? Is it DHCP? Is it DNS? We have competitors like Nyanza, 7Signal, Mist, etc. How do you see yourself in that environment compared to those other? I mean, I got you on the phone, so let's find out. What do you think about those competitors, and what makes Cape a better solution for people who are trying to, between those competitors, make a decision?
Right. I think that each one of these companies does something slightly different, and so. Some are maybe more applicable to your environment than others, and I can't speak to each one of their specific strengths. But what I will say is this: versus, for example, a Mist or something similar, we don't want you to replace your existing infrastructure that you've already invested in. You can add sensors to whatever environment you're running right now, and that will provide you a new level of insight into how users are experiencing your network, and provide you with tools to troubleshoot your network and make that experience better. Versus other similar kind of sensor companies like 7Signal, for example. I think that one thing we do very well is make it just very easy to install the product, get it set it up. Like I was saying, you can get it set up in a matter of minutes. it's just really simple to use the product, to learn the product in the dashboard, and I think that's something that's really appealing to a lot of people, and it's something that we've invested a lot of time and attention into.
And you've done a bang up job on that. For a Wi-Fi designer who's out designing a network and makes the decision, yes, we think it's a good idea to have a diagnostic overlay using these sensors. What kind of recommendations do you give for number of sensors per AP? I know you hate that question, but it comes up all the time. It's something they ask. They're like, is it 1 to 1, 1 to 50, someplace in between, I'm sure.
Yeah, someplace in between. We typically see around 1 to 10, one sensor for every roughly 10 access points. It changes a lot for different kinds of environments. So in stadiums, for example, we see that much closer to 1 to 20, just because of the density of access points. And in smaller office environments where you've maybe got 4 access points on the floor or 5 access points on the floor, for example, you might have one sensor, so you might have a higher ratio there. It really depends on your environment. I think one of the advantages in the way that we've just architected the product and designed it is that it's really easy to scale up and start with however many you want to start with. So we've had customers start with 5 and then scale up to more than 300 over time as they've expanded their deployment and got comfortable with the product and really been convinced of its value.
I get back to the same design question. Have you worked with Ekahau or NetScout Air Magnet Survey to come up with a set of requirements to help design around where to place sensors? There's already a full survey, either pre or post, that shows where all the APs are and what their signal strengths are. Is there some sort of formula that you can work with one of these survey vendors, kind of give a hint of best places to put your sensors?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think someone asked something similar at MSD2, and we haven't. Well, we've been working with Ekahau. They're actually waiting for some data from our side, those we'll hopefully have something to talk about there soon.
Well, it just brings a smile to my face to know you guys are working together. It's going to come at some point. Then there was a time when Air Magnet had Air Magnet sensors as well, and one of the tools inside of Air Magnet Survey Pro was a button to say, "Here, tell me where to put my sensors," and it was quite useful for people who are out there designing networks and doing the overlay sensor to say, "I don't know where they go." Push a button, and because you already had all the data about what each AP can see, what its coverage was, it could find the most optimal places for sensors. So that would help some people who are thinking of deploying these in a little larger scale.
Yeah, that sounds great. We would love to work more closely with Ekahau on something like that. Like I said, we're the ones to blame for the lack of progress there.
Miko@ekahau.com. No.
Yeah.
I have to plug that whenever I can, so people send him lots and lots of emails.
Excellent.
Talking about a little Ekahau and email to Miko, on Twitter, they're supporting something called it's a hashtag ESS request. Is there someone there at Cape Networks that's also tracking on the Twitter feeds, on the interwebs, and finding how would someone send a request for new information or new features?
Yeah, we actually the typical way we get requests is through we have a live chat feature in the dashboard that any of our customers, any of our users can just immediately start chatting with our engineers. Like I said, our engineers are based in Cape Town, so they kind of they're not available 24/7 to chat, not every day at least. But yeah, anyone can send through a request through the chat. We also anyone can email us at support@capenetworks.com. and we actually just got some great feedback today on that email address. We one of the things that we've been working on is an automated weekly report that's super simple and we tried to make it the right balance between simple and comprehensive. And we've just gotten some great feedback on that report today.
And from a user standpoint, bottom right corner of your dashboard, there's a little chat window. Looks like a little almost smiley face with no eyes. And though every time you log in, there's someone saying, "Oh, we got this new feature." In fact, that's how I found out about the weekly report. Just showed up right on my screen. So it's kind of proactive on your part to push things out and give new information.
Yeah, we use it to talk to our users, and we found it to be super helpful. We really like it.
Tell us about your biggest install. You mentioned somebody has 300 sensors. If that's any ratio, that's a fairly decent sized wireless network.
Yeah, they're a really big network. I can tell you about them. Vast Networks. They're based. They were actually our very first customer when we were prototyping the product. They've been working with us since then, and they were just nominated for Wi-Fi Service Provider of the Year with Wi-Fi Now. A small plug for us. We were just nominated for Best Wi-Fi Startup as well. I think the winners are going to be announced in the next week or two. But they provide public Wi-Fi and other and managed Wi-Fi in thousands of locations in South Africa. And yeah, we've been working with them for a couple of years, and it's without speaking for them too much, we've become an important part of the way that they manage their network. It's a small team, much like many managed service providers and distributed enterprises. They've got a small team that manages many locations, handling complaints and sending out truck rolls is difficult and time consuming, and so they use Cape to proactively ensure that their network is always performing well.
I think from a metric, at least here in the States, where for me a truck roll is the cost of a sensor. So if it can save one truck roll, it's probably justified. Truck roll is like the worst thing you can think of from a financial standpoint. It costs the truck, it costs the person, and it's lost business. And usually, if you could fix it remotely, your life would be so much better. So what it tells me about that company is they started with you and they're increasing and using more and more. So obviously, you're meeting their needs. That's a good case study for you.
Yes, yeah, we're really pleased to be working with them. They've been great partners for us and very helpful. A lot of the features of the product, we've collaborated with them, directly to put in place. So yeah, no, they've been great.
And a crazy question for you now. This is kind of in the realm of tell me to shut up if you don't want to go down here. I spent some time today talking with Jerry Ola on Odroid and using it as a performance test tool. We've improved it over the last 6-8 months since WLPC. We just did one in Lisbon and had 90 minutes of no assembly because we pre-assembled them. It was all 90 minutes of actually using it for testing all sorts of things. The thought crossed my mind, is there a way, since you have network interface cards, both wired and wireless, you're running Linux, you got a CPU in there, is there a way to use one of these as a target endpoint to do some testing with? I know it's not what it's for. I was just going to ask.
Is there a way to use the Odroid?
No, to use a Cape sensor.
How so? Like
I want to send it and have it iPerf for me via either a server or a client.
Right. Yeah. So iPerf works on the sensor already. So you can actually iPerf to or iPerf from the sensor. So it actually only works as an iPerf client. Just from a security perspective, it's kind of locked down. and so yeah, that's one of the tests that you can set up for your sensor is set it up so that it does like an iPerf every hour or a certain period of time.
So, and that's using the wireless client to go over your wireless network and do the perf test.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's one of the external tests you can set up. I was wondering,
Yes.
The question is more, can I use another device and is the iPerf client always running so I could just hit the port and have it talk to me?
Yeah, it's totally locked down, so you can't use it for for that. Unfortunately, so there's no ports open on the device.
Not a problem. It was just went through my head. Yes, the iPerf from the other side as a client works, and it's an external test you can run, and it gives you that view of the world. I was just playing, and I can understand why you kind of want to have it locked down and not just answering any port someone asks it to give you. So yeah, the amount of detail there. A lot of users use either Insider from MetaGeek or Wi-Fi Explorer from Adrian Granados, and that level of information is also available from your Cape sensor.
Yeah, I think look, the we're big fans of both MetaGeek and Adrian and their tools, and I think in fairness to both of those, they both have features that we don't, and they both have their kind of different purposes. I think that for the sensors, it's most useful in kind of remote environments when you're not actually present with your laptop to be able to troubleshoot it. Certainly, it does show a lot of the data that those tools provide, but yeah, we think that that's the most value that you're going to get out of sensors is just 24/7 testing in environments where you may or may not always be present.
Yeah, and so just for those who are listening in, the scanning tool that you'd use on Insider or Wi-Fi Explorer, your remote sensors will give that same list to you. And
right.
My testing shows that your sensor is a lot more sensitive than my laptops are. So kudos to whoever designed your antennas. It's seeing a lot more access points around neighbors than the Mac that it's sitting next to.
Yeah, good to hear.
It's good all around. I mean, some of them are down into the neg 92, 95
right.
range. That's a fairly sensitive chipset and antenna set you've got going.
One thing that was a challenge for us is, because you've got a cellular modem in there as well, making sure that Wi-Fi and cellular don't interfere with each other. We had to do a fair bit of RF engineering to make that all work.
Your engineering's done well. I appreciate your time today, David. It's been a while since MFD too, and hopefully we'll see you over at WLPC. And we ought to have one in South Africa. We've added all the other continents. We've got one in the U.S. in the spring and February. We just got done with Lisbon for Europe in the fall, doing Latin America in August, and in July doing ANZ and Southeast Asia. So Africa is the only continent we got left. So we need to perhaps come down to Cape Town.
That'll be awesome. Cape Town is a really fun place to visit, and we'd love to have you down there. So yeah, let me know if you do. Otherwise, I'll see you at WLPC in February.
Sounds good. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Keith.
10 Talks.
I've spoken at kind of all of these thanks to Keith's prodding for people to come up here and do 10 Talks. This year I picked a different topic than what I've been talking on in the past. So digital disruption is sort of a big marketing term people hear out there. So I want to kind of bring that back and how it's relevant for us as wireless LAN engineers. I have a pretty broad background. Sort of telecom, cellular, Wi-Fi, security, networking. So a little bit about me. I kind of want to start, make sure everyone's on the same page. We talk about what digital disruption is and why this is important, right? So for me, I really like the last quote. which is that digital disruption is the collision that is happening as consumers are embracing new technologies to make their lives easier, and the companies of all sizes are using new technologies to offer better experiences. There's a big focus on that in every vertical, right? We're always focusing on the clients and the end users, and enabling them to do things and work the way that they want to work. So who's out there? Who are these disruptors, right? Well, we have a whole bunch of open source tools. We have software as a service that has made this relatively inexpensive for anyone with a really good idea to step up and do this, right? And the dangerous ones out there are also the ones that have the ability to actually stick with it and execute on it. And if we look at these common trends of what these people have, they're really focused on that customer, right? They're always trying to lower cost, right? Better, faster, cheaper, but also looking at things that are outside of what exists today and in sort of that adjacent space, right? So if I only had this piece, I could do so much more, right? So working with the end customers to figure that out. So the important question, right? Where do we fit in as wireless LAN engineers? Well, I'd say that now the wireless LAN is where your edge of a network, right, is meeting the business. In almost all cases, it's the predominant access layer, right? So as a wireless engineer, these are some of the things that I kind of highlighted that we need to know, right? So we need to understand our customers better than they know themselves, right? I think I liked Lee's presentation earlier talking about requirements. We really need to understand them and can sort of anticipate what they're going to be asking for. We need to really understand our platforms, right? So all the training programs around, the CW&E programs, the Aruba, Cisco, whatever, right? We need to understand the platforms that we have and be the best technologists that we can be, so that we understand where our systems are strong and where they're going to fail. And then really, also being able to communicate that to the non-technical people that are important in our lives as engineers, right? And then lastly, identify opportunities for us to innovate. How can I always offer something better to my customer, right? And also identify where those risks are to my business. It's a little bit more on understanding the customer, right? So I define the customer as those who are consuming our services, right? So that may look different if you're a vendor, right? I'll use Lee's example again, ranting about bugs, right? Their customer is different than someone who works for a VAR or someone who works internally, right? So everyone's gonna have their own definition of customer, but it's really those people that are consuming those services, right? They may be internal to your company, they may be external, but really think holistically about who that customer base is. They really understand the behavior, right? So Blake just finished talking about painting the spectrum. Understanding who they are, like what kind of devices are we going to use? What are the use cases? Those are going to define all the parameters around how we're building these environments. And then I mentioned a little bit earlier, but being able to anticipate what that customer is asking for is super important. As a platform, right? So understanding the pros and cons of your solution, well beyond just the RF. I think as wireless LAN engineers, we talk a lot about RF. And it is important, but there's also all these other aspects, right? Security, manageability, interoperability, APIs, right? What can we integrate with? How do we integrate? And then also, I was glad to see someone stand up here and talk about cellular, right? When you talk about the whole space, it's not just wireless LAN. How many people are out there doing surveys and they're getting asked if this is going to improve my cellular coverage, right? Well, there's Wi-Fi calling or whatever, but in that space, it's much bigger than just wireless LAN. So we need to, even though our focus might be wireless LAN, we still need to be aware of the other options that are out there. And then being able to articulate those requirements back up in a non-technical way. So I think this is the things that we need to be watching for on a regular basis, right? So everybody's seeing some sort of disruption. There's definitely areas they're seeing it more than others. We need to understand our people. We need to understand what we're looking for, where the risks are to our business, be able to communicate those upstream. and looking for those opportunities to improve and meet the needs of the business and our customers, right? I thought this last point that's in red here came out in a meeting I was having a couple weeks ago, which is, we're always focused on the success of our own business, but realize in certain industries, there's people out there that are looking to make you fail, right? You need to understand that so you can defend against it, right? And this becomes a big part of our role. So I just want to highlight a lot of things that we can do to keep current. Some of these, attend relevant conferences. We're already doing that, here. Staying up to date on the certs, building relationships with your peers. Someone was talking to me about EDU listserv that they have. There's a smaller group of a subset of the people that are here that share a lot of ideas. I think that's fantastic, right? Continue to read. That's something that me personally, I've tried, I find myself getting busy and I have been doing less reading of books. I read a lot of online. I've been trying to address that myself and read more books, right? Continue to follow trends in your own, that are in your own vertical and the ones that share similarities. If you're in healthcare, reading just about healthcare sometimes isn't enough, right? You should be looking to hospitality, for instance, right? One of the big focuses is, improving the life of a patient. Where can we learn a lot? In hospitality, right? So look not only to your own vertical, but to some adjacent ones. Demand more of your vendors, partners, et cetera, right? If you're on the end customer side, you're investing a lot in your vendors and your partners. Expect more back from them, right? Whether it's just, discussions or whatever, just, press them for that kind of stuff. Lab equipment, investing time. I love that, they're talking about a lending library of sorts for gear and be able to build a lab. I think it's a huge component of what we could do to do our jobs better, right? And then challenge yourself in new areas, right? I see a lot of people get focused on what they're doing and they get really good at it, but if someone throws a curve at them, they don't know what to do, right? So continue to sort of expand the breadth a bit. It's still important to stay focused, but it'll help you understand where your focus is a little bit better. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter @Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.